The Eternal Vanguard shook again, worse than before. Tejo grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Through the observation window, he could see the quantum crystals getting brighter and dimmer in a pattern that hurt his eyes. "Evacuation pods are launching from decks 12 through 15, came a voice over the ship's communication system. "All civilian personnel report to emergency stations immediately." Bora was still watching the crystals. "It's getting worse," she said. "The resonance is spreading to the outer rings now." Zixathara stood perfectly still like a statue made of crystal. Her people didn't show emotions the same way humans did, but Tejo could tell she was very upset. "This should not be happening," she said. "Our calculations show this is impossible." "Your calculations are wrong," Bora said simply. The Altarian made a sound like wind blowing through broken glass. "Altarian calculations are never wrong. We have been building perfect machines since before your species discovered fire." Another blast shook the ship. This time the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting came on, casting everything in red shadows. Through the communication system, they could hear people shouting orders and running. "We need to get back." "To the bridge," Tejo said. They made their way through corridors filled with smoke and sparks. Aliens were running in all directions. Some carried equipment, others helped injured crew members. The perfect ship was becoming a nightmare. When they reached the bridge, it was even more chaotic than before. Admiral Veltar was standing in the middle, his forearms moving as he gave orders to different stations. His silver skin had turned almost black, which meant he was very stressed. "Report," the Admiral said when he saw them. "The core resonance is spreading," Bora said. "If it reaches the outer containment rings, the whole matrix will collapse." "How long?" Admiral Veltar asked. 2 hours, maybe less." A new voice spoke up from across the bridge. "Sir, we have more humans requesting to help." It was Lieutenant Commander Dong-Wook Lee, another human engineer. Behind him stood Dr. Hye-Jin Choi, a materials scientist, and sub-engineer Jun-Sik Yu, who was young and eager. "The humans want to help?" Zixathara asked. "What could they possibly do?" Dong-Wook stepped forward. He was older than the others, with gray hair and steady hands. "We've been talking with the other human crew members. We think we understand what's happening." "Explain," Admiral Veltar said. Dr. Choi pulled out a small device and projected a hologram in the air. It showed the crystal matrix with lines and numbers floating around it. "The quantum crystals are rejecting their own harmonic frequency. There's a tiny impurity in the crystal structure. It's so small your quality control didn't catch it." "Impossible," Zixathara said. "Our quality control is perfect." "Nothing is perfect," Jun-Sik said. He was the youngest human on the ship, barely, 25 years old. "That's the first thing they teach us in engineering school. Everything breaks eventually." The ship shook again. Sparks flew from control panels around the bridge. More alarms started ringing. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We're getting reports of hull breaches on 7 decks. The artificial gravity is failing in sections 9 through 12. Admiral Veltar's 3 eyes looked around the bridge. Half the control stations were dark now. Crew members were working by emergency lighting. "What do you propose?" he asked the humans. "Let us try to fix it," Tejo said. Every alien on the bridge turned to stare at him. The silence was so complete that they could hear the ship groaning around them. "You want to repair our quantum crystal matrix?" Zixathara asked. "You, who do not even understand the basic principles of quantum engineering." "We understand that it's broken," Bora said, "and we know how to fix broken things. This is not some crude human machine," Zixathara said, her voice getting higher. "This is the most advanced technology in the galaxy. It cannot be repaired with your primitive methods." Admiral Veltar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "What would your repair involve?" Dong-Wook answered. "We would need full access to the core chamber. We would need to modify the crystal housing. We might need to replace some components with human-made parts." The aliens on the bridge made various sounds of shock and horror. One Rigelian officer actually stepped backward. You want to put human components into an Altarian quantum matrix? Zixathera asked. That would be like putting stone wheels on a spacecraft. Stone wheels work, June6 said. Maybe not fast, maybe not pretty, but they work. Another explosion rocked the ship. This time some of the bridge windows cracked. Through the cracks they could see escape pods flying away from the ship like tiny stars. Main reactor is showing signs of instability, came a report from the engine room. If the quantum matrix collapses completely, it could cause a core breach. Admiral Veltar went very still. A core breach would destroy the ship and everything within 100 kilometers. All those escape pods wouldn't be far enough away. How certain are you that your repairs would work? He asked the humans. Taeho looked at his team. Bo-Ra nodded. Dongwook nodded. Dr. Choi and Jun-Sik nodded. Honestly, sir, we're not certain at all, but we know the ship will definitely be destroyed if we do nothing. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Around them, more systems failed. More alarms sounded. More reports came in of damage throughout the ship. Finally, Admiral Veltar spoke. High Engineer Zixathera, you will escort the human team to the core chamber. You will provide them with full access to all systems. Sir, I must protest. You will also provide them with any materials they request. Zixathera's crystal body actually changed color, becoming darker and more cloudy. Sir, if they damage the matrix further, it could trigger an immediate cascade failure. The cascade failure is already happening, Admiral Veltar said. At least this way we have a chance. As the human team prepared to leave the bridge, more crew members approached them. Engineers from different alien species, all offering to help. But Taeho shook his head. Thank you, but we need to work the way we're trained to work, he said. Too many different ideas will just slow us down. They made their way to the core chamber through corridors that were getting more damaged by the minute. Walls were cracked, pipes were leaking. The beautiful blue lighting had been replaced by harsh emergency lights. I still do not understand, Zixathera said as they walked, how you can possibly fix something you do not understand. We don't need to understand how it works, Bo-Ra said. We just need to understand why it's broken. That is the most illogical thing I have ever heard. Dr. Choi laughed, but not in a mean way. You build things to work perfectly in perfect conditions. We build things to work when everything goes wrong. But why would you assume things will go wrong? Because they always do, Jun-Sik said. The universe is messy and chaotic, and nothing ever goes according to plan. So we plan for things to go wrong. They reached the core chamber access port. Zixathera placed her crystal hand on a scanner, and the thick doors opened. Inside, they could see the quantum crystal matrix up close. It was even more beautiful than it looked from the observation deck, but also more obviously damaged. Some crystals were flickering like dying light bulbs. Others were so bright they hurt to look at. There, Dongwook said, pointing to a section, where several crystals had gone completely dark. The failure started there and spread outward. If we can isolate that section and dampen the resonance in the surrounding crystals, we might be able to stop the cascade. How? Zixathera asked. The humans looked at each other and grinned. It wasn't a pleasant grin. It was the kind of grin people made when they were about to do something dangerous and probably stupid. We're going to break some of your perfect components, Taeho said, and replace them with ugly human ones that actually work. Commander Taeho Kim walked down the long white hallway of the Eternal Vanguard. The ship was huge, bigger than any human vessel ever built. Its walls glowed with soft blue light, and everything looked perfect. Too perfect, Taeho thought. He had been working with aliens for 5 years now, but their ship still felt strange to him. The Eternal Vanguard was the pride of the Galactic Defense Coalition. It was built by the Altarians, who were famous across the galaxy for making perfect machines. Every bolt, every wire, every computer chip was placed exactly where it should be. The ship had never broken down, never needed repairs, never failed at anything. Taeho reached the engineering deck and found Chief Engineer Bo-Ra Park checking some readings on a small screen. She looked worried, which was unusual. Bo-Ra was always calm, even when things went wrong. Something wrong? Teho asked. Maybe, Bo-Ra said. She pointed at the numbers on her screen. The core readings are a little odd. Nothing dangerous, just different. The core was the heart of the ship. It was made from quantum crystals that the Altarians had grown in special labs. The crystals were supposed to last for 1,000 years without any problems. They powered everything on the ship: lights, engines, weapons, life support. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Both humans looked up at the ceiling. The lights came back to normal, but something felt wrong. Did you feel that? Bo-Ra asked. Before Teho could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on and off. The ship's computer spoke in its calm voice. Warning: core matrix showing unusual resonance patterns. All senior staff report to the bridge immediately. Teho. And Bo-Ra ran toward the bridge. Other crew members were running too. Most of them were aliens. Tall blue Rigelians, crystal-skinned Altarians, and others from dozens of different worlds. The humans were the smallest group on the ship. The bridge was chaos. Admiral Veltar, a Rigelian with 4 arms and silver skin, stood in the center giving orders. His 3 eyes were wide with worry. High Engineer Zix Thera, an Altarian who looked like she was made of living crystal, was working at a control panel. Her fingers moved so fast they were just a blur. Report, Admiral Veltar said when he saw Teho. The core is acting strange, Bo-Ra said. The readings don't make sense. Zix Thera made a sound like breaking glass. It was how Altarians showed they were upset. Impossible, she said. Our crystals do not malfunction. They are perfect. Another alarm went off. This one was louder and more urgent. The ship's computer spoke again. Warning: quantum crystal matrix experiencing cascade failure. Estimated time to complete breakdown, 6 hours. Everyone on the bridge went quiet. A cascade failure meant that one broken part would cause another part to break, which would cause another part to break, and so on. It was like dominoes falling down, but with pieces of the ship instead of small tiles. How is this possible? Admiral Veltar asked. These crystals have never failed before. They cannot fail, Zix Thera insisted. We have built ships like this for 10,000 years. The crystals are grown in perfect conditions. They are tested in perfect conditions. They work in perfect conditions. Teho listened to this and felt something cold in his stomach. What happens if the conditions aren't perfect, he asked. All the aliens turned to look at him. Zix Thera's crystal face showed no expression, but her voice was sharp. The conditions are always perfect. That is how we design our ships. Bo-Ra was still looking at her readings. The failure pattern, she said slowly. It looks familiar. Familiar? How? Teho asked. Like something from the old Earth shipyards. When we first started building in space, we had problems with harmonic stress. Metal would crack when different parts vibrated at the wrong frequency. Zix Thera made the glass breaking sound again. Your primitive metal is not the same as our quantum crystals. We do not have such crude problems. The ship shook. Everyone grabbed onto something to stay standing. More alarms started ringing. Through the bridge windows, Teho could see sparks flying from some of the outer hull sections. Gravity generators are failing, someone reported. Hull breach in Sector 7. Life support is dropping in the lower decks. Admiral Veltar's 3 eyes looked at each screen around the bridge. Each screen showed more systems failing. How long do we have? He asked. At this rate, maybe 4 hours before complete structural failure, another officer said. Begin evacuation. Procedures, the Admiral ordered. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Teho watched the chaos around him. The aliens were panicking because their perfect system was failing, and they didn't know why. Their computers couldn't explain it, their sensors couldn't fix it. Their 1,000 years of perfect engineering couldn't stop it. But Bo-Ra was still studying her readings. She had that look on her face that meant she was thinking hard about something. Sir, Teho said to Admiral Veltar, could we examine the core directly? The Admiral's middle eye focused on him. You? But you are not trained in quantum crystal technology. No, sir, but we might see something different. Sometimes an outside view helps. High Engineer Zixathera stepped forward. Her crystal body made soft ringing sounds when she moved. Absolutely not. The core chamber is far too dangerous for untrained personnel. Besides, your human technology is centuries behind ours. You would not understand what you were seeing. The ship shook again, harder this time. Several control panels sparked and went dark. The lights dimmed and stayed dim. Main power is at 60% and falling, someone called out. Bora looked up from her readings. Commander, I think I know what's happening, but I need to see the core to be sure. Admiral Veltar was quiet for a long moment. His silver skin was changing colors, which meant he was thinking very hard. Finally, he spoke. High Engineer Zixthera, escort the humans to Observation Deck 5. They may observe the core chamber, but they may not touch anything. Zixthera's crystal face somehow managed to look angry. Sir, this is most irregular. Humans cannot possibly understand. They will observe only, the Admiral said firmly. But right now our understanding is not helping us. Perhaps a different viewpoint will. As they left the bridge, Tejo heard more reports coming in. Systems were failing faster now. The ship that was supposed to be perfect was coming apart. And the best engineers in the galaxy couldn't figure out why. Zixathera led them through corridors that were getting darker and more damaged. Some sections had emergency lighting only. Other sections had no lights at all. The ship was dying around them. Your people do not understand, Zixthera said as they walked. We have spent millions of years perfecting our technology. Every component is exactly right. Every calculation is precise, every measurement is perfect. What happens when something unexpected occurs? Bora asked. Nothing unexpected occurs. We design our systems to prevent unexpected events. Tejo and Bora looked at each other. They both knew that the universe was full of unexpected events. That's why human ships had backup systems for their backup systems. That's why human engineers always asked, what if this breaks? Instead of assuming it never would. They reached Observation Deck 5. Through the thick windows they could see the core chamber. The quantum crystals were beautiful. They looked like frozen light, all different colors swirling together. But something was wrong. The colors were flickering and changing too fast. Some crystals were getting brighter while others were getting dimmer. There, Bora said, pointing. See how the resonance is building up in the third ring? It's creating a feedback loop. Tejo saw it too. The crystals were vibrating and the vibrations were getting stronger, just like the harmonic stress problems they used to have on Earth. Can you stop it? He asked. Maybe. If we could dampen the resonance somehow, add some kind of buffer system. Zixthera overheard them. Impossible. You cannot modify a quantum crystal matrix. It would destroy the perfect balance. Another explosion shook the ship. This time, pieces of the ceiling fell down around them. The perfect ship was falling apart, and only the humans seemed to understand why. The human team stood in the core chamber, looking at the most advanced machine in the galaxy. The quantum crystals were beautiful but dying. Colors swirled through them like liquid light, but the patterns were wrong. The harmony was broken. Right, Dongwook said, rolling up his sleeves. Let's get to work. He opened a toolbox that looked ancient compared to the gleaming crystal technology around them. Inside were simple tools, hammers, wrenches, wire cutters, welding torches, things that had been used to build machines for hundreds of years. Zixthera stared at the toolbox in horror. You cannot be serious. Those primitive instruments will destroy everything they touch. That's the idea, Bora said cheerfully. She was already pulling cables out of her backpack. The cables were thick and ugly, made of simple copper wire wrapped in plastic. Next to the elegant crystal conduits of the Altarian ship, they looked like rope compared to silk. Dr. Choi was setting up her equipment. She had scanners and analyzers, but they were human-made, bulky and practical instead of sleek and beautiful. I need to test the crystal composition first, she said. Junsik, help me get readings from the damaged sections. Junsik nodded and started connecting Dr. Choi's equipment to the crystal matrix. He had to remove some of the Altarian access panels to do it. Each panel was a work of art, perfectly shaped and seamlessly integrated into the ship's design. Junsik carefully placed them on the floor where they wouldn't get damaged. "This is vandalism," Zixthara said. "You are destroying millions of years of engineering evolution." "We're trying to save your ship," Taeho said. He was studying the crystal housing, looking for the best place to start modifications. Sometimes saving something means making it ugly. Dongwook fired up his welding torch. The flame was bright and crude compared to the soft glow of the crystals. "Zixthara, I need you to shut down power to Section C7. I will not be part of this destruction." The ship shook again. More alarms went off. Through the chamber's speakers, they could hear Admiral Veltar's voice. "All remaining personnel to emergency stations. Reactor containment is at critical levels." Zixthara, Taeho, said quietly, "If you don't help us, everyone on this ship is going to die, including you." The Altarian stood very still for a long moment. Then her crystal fingers moved over the control panel. "Power to Section C7 is offline." "Thank you," Dongwook said. He began cutting into the crystal housing with his torch. "Thank you." Beautiful, seamless surface split apart under the crude flame. Sparks flew everywhere. The elegant curves became jagged edges. Dr. Choi looked up from her scanners. "I've found the problem. There's a microscopic flaw in the crystal lattice. It's creating a harmonic distortion that spreads to other crystals." "How microscopic?" Bora asked. "About 1 part in 50 million. Zixthara made her glass-breaking sound again. "Impossible. Our quality control can detect flaws 1 part in a billion." "Then how did this one get through?" Junsik asked. The Altarian had no answer. Dongwook had cut a large opening in the crystal housing. Inside, they could see the quantum crystals themselves. They were even more beautiful up close, but also clearly damaged. Some were flickering rapidly. Others had dark spots spreading through them like infections. "Right," he said. "Bora, start running your cables. We need to bypass the damaged crystals completely." Bora began threading her thick copper cables through the opening. The cables looked absurd next to the delicate crystal structures. It was like tying rope around a butterfly. "This will never work," Zixthara said. "Copper cannot handle quantum frequencies." "Copper can't handle quantum frequencies perfectly," Bora corrected her, "but it can handle them well enough." Dr. Choi was installing something that looked like a metal box with wires coming out of it. "Harmonic dampener," she explained to Zixthara. "It won't stop the resonance completely, but it will absorb enough energy to prevent cascade failure." "That crude device cannot possibly—" "It doesn't have to be perfect," Dr. Choi interrupted. "It just has to work." Junsik was welding metal brackets to the crystal housing. The brackets were ugly and functional like everything human-made. "These will provide mechanical stability," he told Zixthara. "Your crystals are beautiful, but they're fragile. If the ship shakes too much, they crack. Our crystals are grown to precise specifications. They do not crack." "They're cracking right now," Junsik pointed out. Taeho was working on something else. He had opened a panel that controlled the power distribution to the crystal matrix. The Altarian circuits were works of art. Each connection was perfect, each component exactly the right size and shape. Taeho began replacing them with human components. Where the Altarians had used one perfect circuit, he installed 3 crude ones. Where they had used elegant quantum relays, he welded in simple switches and fuses. "Why 3 circuits?" Zixthara asked. "One should be sufficient." "What happens when that one circuit breaks?" Taeho asked. "Our circuits do not break. Everything breaks eventually. When it does, I'll still have 2 circuits left." The human team worked for 2 hours while the ship fell apart around them. The Eternal Vanguard was shaking constantly now. Lights flickered on and off. Somewhere in the distance they could hear the sound of hull plating tearing away, but slowly their modifications began to take effect. "Power levels are stabilizing in Section C7, Bora reported. "Harmonic distortion is down 15%, Dr. Choi added. "The cascade failure has stopped spreading," Junsik said, checking his readings. For the first time in hours, Zixthara sounded hopeful. It is working? It's working, Dongwook confirmed. He was covered in sweat and grease. His hands were black, with dirt, and his clothes were torn. He looked nothing like the elegant alien engineers, but his ugly, crude modifications were saving their beautiful, perfect ship. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Engineering team, report status immediately. Tejo activated his communicator. Admiral, we've stopped the cascade. Failure in the primary matrix. The ship is stable. There was a long pause, then. Stable? You mean, the ship isn't going to explode, sir, but we're not done yet. We need to rebuild the entire power distribution system. How long? Tejo looked at his team. They were all tired, dirty, and covered in grease. But they were grinning. This was the kind of work humans were good at. Give us 12 hours, sir. We'll have her running better than new. Better than new, came Admiral Veltar's voice. How is that possible? Tejo looked around the core chamber. The beautiful Altarian crystals were now surrounded by ugly human cables, crude metal brackets, and simple electronic boxes. It looked like someone had wrapped a work of art in duct tape and wire. But it worked. The ship was alive. The crew was safe. The perfect machine that couldn't handle one tiny flaw was now strong enough to survive almost anything. Because, sir, Tejo said, we don't build things to be perfect. We build them to keep working when perfection fails. 3 months later, the Eternal Vanguard returned to Coalition Central Command looking like no ship anyone had ever seen before. Its hull was covered with human modifications, support beams, sensor arrays, emergency equipment, and backup systems that made it look more like a space station than a warship. But it was the most feared ship in the galaxy. Word of its performance had spread through every star system. Pirates fled when they saw it coming. Enemy fleets retreated rather than face its weapons. The ship that had once been admired for its beauty was now respected for its power. Admiral Veltar stood before the Coalition Council, giving his report. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds, all wanting to hear about the human modifications. In the past 3 months, the Admiral said, the Eternal Vanguard has completed 12 combat missions. It has outperformed every other ship in the fleet. It has capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. And the cost? Asked Councillor Thexelar, an Altarian budget specialist. Maintenance requirements are higher than standard ships. The human systems require constant attention, regular adjustments, and frequent replacement of components. Several council members made sounds of disapproval. However, Admiral Veltar continued, the ship has never been out of service. While other ships return to dock for major repairs, the Eternal Vanguard fixes itself along the way. Its systems are designed to be repaired by the crew using common materials. He activated a holographic display showing the ship's performance statistics. Every category showed improvement over the original design. Weapons output increased by 40%. Shield strength increased by 60%. Engine power increased by 100%. Most importantly, system reliability is at 98%, the highest in the fleet. Councillor Valina, a Rigelian administrator, raised one of her 4 hands. How do you define system reliability? The percentage of time all systems are functioning at acceptable levels, Admiral Veltar explained. Our original ships achieve near-perfect performance when everything works correctly. But when something fails, entire systems shut down while we wait for replacement parts or expert technicians. He changed the display to show maintenance records. The human-modified ship maintains acceptable performance even when components fail. Backup systems activate automatically. Manual overrides allow the crew to work around damaged equipment. Repairs can be made with basic tools and common materials. This sounds inefficient, said Councillor Zixnara, Zixthara's superior in the Altarian hierarchy. Commander Tejo Kim stepped forward. He now wore the insignia of Chief of Hybrid Engineering for the Coalition, a position that had been created specifically for him. Councillor Zixnara, he said respectfully, may I ask what you mean by efficient? The Altarian councillor's crystal form shifted slightly. Optimal use of resources, minimum waste, perfect operation. And what happens when perfect operation is interrupted? It should not be interrupted. That is what perfect means. Tejo nodded. But it was interrupted. The Eternal Vanguard's perfect systems failed and nearly destroyed the ship. Our inefficient modifications saved it. He activated his own display, showing images from the original crisis. Your perfect crystal matrix used exactly the right amount of power, with no waste. But when one tiny flaw appeared, the entire system collapsed. Our inefficient system uses 20% more power than necessary, but it keeps working even when multiple components fail. Chief Engineer Bora Park joined him at the display. She had been promoted to head the new Human Altarian Engineering Corps. The question isn't whether our systems are perfect, she said. The question is whether they work when you need them to work. A perfect system that fails completely is less useful than an imperfect system that keeps running. Counselor Thexelar spoke up. But surely there must be a compromise. Can we not have both efficiency and reliability? Master Engineer Kyung-Ho Bae, now the senior instructor at the Coalition Engineering Academy, answered this question. The compromise is accepting that nothing is perfect, he said. When you design systems expecting them to fail, you can prepare for that failure. When you design systems expecting perfection, failure is catastrophic. Dr. Hyojin Choi had become the Coalition's chief materials scientist. Her research into human-alien hybrid technology was being studied throughout the galaxy. We've discovered something interesting, she said. Human engineering and alien engineering aren't opposites, they're complementary. Alien precision combined with human adaptability creates systems that are both elegant and robust. She showed examples from the newest ships being built in Coalition yards. They combined the beauty of Altarian crystal technology with the reliability of human backup systems. The results were ships that looked almost as elegant as the originals, but could survive damage that would destroy a purely Altarian vessel. We call it the human doctrine, Dr. Choi continued. Build systems that work not because conditions are perfect, but in spite of conditions being imperfect. Systems analyst Mira Song, now director of Coalition Fleet Operations, presented the final statistics. 18 months ago, the Coalition fleet had a 95% operational readiness rate, meaning 5% of our ships were always in dock for repairs. Today, with human modifications, we maintain 99% operational readiness. More importantly, she continued, our ships are more capable in combat, more adaptable to unexpected situations, and can operate independently for longer periods without support. The council chamber was quiet as the representatives absorbed this information. Finally, Councillor Velina asked the question everyone was thinking. Are you recommending that we abandon our traditional engineering methods? Admiral Veltar answered. We're recommending that we expand them. The Human Engineering Corps now works alongside engineers from every coalition species. We're learning from each other. Tejo stepped forward again. The humans aren't replacing your engineers. We're teaching them to think differently, to ask different questions. What questions? Asked Councillor Zixnara. Instead of, how can we make this perfect? We ask, what happens when this breaks? Instead of, how do we prevent all possible failures? We ask, how do we keep working when failure occurs? Bora added, instead of building systems that work in ideal conditions, we build systems that work in real conditions. Space is not ideal. Combat is not ideal. The universe is messy and chaotic and hostile to perfection. But we can build systems that thrive in chaos, Kyung-Ho said. Systems that get stronger when challenged, more reliable when stressed, more capable when damaged. The Council voted unanimously to expand the Human Engineering Corps throughout the Coalition fleet. Within 2 years, every major vessel had human-trained engineers working alongside alien specialists. The results were remarkable. Fleet casualties dropped by 60%. Mission success rates increased to near 100%. Ships that once required months of maintenance between deployments could now operate continuously for years. But the most important change was philosophical. Zixthara, now co-director of the Altarian Human Engineering Institute, stood before her students, a mixed class of humans and aliens learning to work together. For 10,000 years, she told them, My people believed that perfection was the highest goal of engineering. We created machines of incredible beauty and precision, but we also created machines that were fragile and inflexible. She gestured to a display showing the Eternal Vanguard as it was now, powerful, reliable, and undeniably effective, even if not classically beautiful. The humans taught us that there is something more important than perfection, she continued. Resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, the strength to keep working when everything goes wrong. A young Altarian student raised her hand. But Teacher Zixathara, doesn't this mean that thousands of years of our engineering tradition were wrong? Zixathara made a sound like crystal chimes in a gentle wind, the Altarian equivalent of a laugh. Not wrong, she said. Incomplete. We learned how to make things work perfectly. The humans taught us how to make things work imperfectly. And discovered that imperfect things that keep working are often more valuable than perfect things that break. In the years that followed, the human doctrine spread beyond engineering. Coalition scientists began designing experiments that expected unexpected results. Military strategists began planning for plans to fail. Even philosophers started asking different questions about the nature of perfection and imperfection. And throughout the galaxy, on ships and stations and colonies, human engineers worked alongside alien colleagues, teaching them the most important lesson humanity had ever learned. The universe is not perfect, it is chaotic, unpredictable, and often hostile. But if you build things expecting chaos, prepare for unpredictability, and plan for hostility, you can create systems that not only survive in such a universe, they prosper in it. The Eternal Vanguard still patrols the Outer Rim, no longer the most beautiful ship in the fleet, but certainly the most trusted. Its crew knows that their vessel will keep working no matter what the universe throws at them, because it was built by humans who understood that everything breaks eventually, and by aliens who learned that broken things can be fixed, modified, and improved. 12 hours later, the core chamber looked like a completely different place. The elegant Altarian crystals were still there, still beautiful, but now they were surrounded by a maze of human-made additions. Thick cables ran everywhere. Metal boxes hummed quietly in corners. Warning lights blinked on control panels that had been installed over the original smooth surfaces. It wasn't pretty, but it was alive. Incredible, Admiral Veltar said, as he toured the chamber with his senior staff. The Rigelian's three eyes moved constantly, taking in all the changes. The power output is actually higher than before. 23% higher, Dr. Choi confirmed, reading from one of her ugly human instruments. The harmonic dampeners aren't just preventing cascade failure. They're also reducing energy loss in the crystal matrix. Zixathara moved through the chamber like she was visiting a grave. Her crystal fingers touched the human modifications carefully as if they might be dangerous. I still do not understand how this is possible. Dongwook was installing the last of the backup power systems. Each one looked like a metal box with wires sticking out of it. Your crystals were losing energy through harmonic resonance, he explained. You never noticed because the loss was small and the crystals had plenty of power. But those tiny losses added up over time. Our calculations showed no significant energy loss, Zixathara said. Your calculations assumed perfect conditions, Bora said. She was testing one of the new power distribution panels. In perfect conditions, there wouldn't be any loss. But space isn't perfect. There's radiation, gravity fluctuations, temperature changes. All those tiny imperfections cause tiny energy losses. Junsik looked up from where he was welding another support bracket. That's why we build everything with extra capacity. We know things won't be perfect, so we plan for imperfection. Admiral Veltar studied one of the new power panels. It was covered in switches, dials, and warning lights. The original Altarian controls had been smooth and simple, with just a few touch-sensitive areas. Why so many manual controls? Backup systems, Tejo explained. If the main computer fails, you can still control everything by hand. If the automatic systems break down, you can switch to manual operation. But our computers do not fail, an Altarian technician said. This one did, Junsik pointed out. When the crystals started failing, your computers couldn't figure out what was wrong. They kept trying to fix the problem with the same methods that caused it. Dr. Choi was running final tests on the harmonic dampeners. The beautiful thing about these systems, she said, is that they get better over time. As the ship encounters new problems, the dampeners learn to handle them. How? Zixthara asked. They're designed to adapt. When they detect a new type of harmonic disturbance, they automatically adjust their frequency response. Your original crystals were perfect for one specific set of conditions. These modified crystals can handle thousands of different conditions. The ship's communication system activated. Engineering team to the bridge immediately. They made their way through corridors that looked different now. Human engineers had been working throughout the ship, not just in the core chamber. Emergency lighting had been replaced with brighter, more practical fixtures. Warning signs had been added to areas that might be dangerous. Handholds had been welded to walls in places where people might need to grab something if the ship shook. The bridge looked different too. New control panels had been added alongside the original Altarian systems. The smooth, elegant surfaces were interrupted by crude human instruments with actual buttons and switches. Report, Admiral Veltar said when they arrived. All systems are stable and operating above normal parameters, Tejo said. The ship is ready for full operational status. What about combat effectiveness? Dr. Choi smiled. We ran simulations. The modified power systems can handle 50% more load than the originals. Your weapons will charge faster. Your shields will be stronger. Your engines will have more power. The bridge crew looked amazed. Several alien officers were studying the new human control panels with curiosity and confusion. I don't understand, said Commander Theclon, a Rigelian weapons officer. How can crude human technology improve our advanced systems? Because our technology is designed for the real universe, Bora explained. Your technology is designed for a perfect universe that doesn't exist. Zixthara had been very quiet during the bridge briefing. Now she stepped forward. I have been analyzing the human modifications, she said. The mathematics are disturbing. Disturbing how? Admiral Veltar asked. The human approach violates many basic principles of efficient engineering. They use 3 components where one would suffice. They build systems that can handle loads far greater than necessary. They include manual overrides for fully automated processes. And yet it works better than our system, the Admiral pointed out. Yes, that is what is disturbing. According to our engineering principles, their approach should be inferior. But the results clearly show otherwise. Dongwook nodded. That's because your engineering principles assume a controlled environment. In space, there are no controlled environments. There's radiation that damages circuits. There are gravitational fields that stress hull plating. There are temperature changes that make metals expand and contract. We account for those factors in our designs, Zixthara said. You account for the average values of those factors. Junsik corrected her. But what happens when the radiation is twice as strong as average? What happens when the temperature changes are 3 times larger than your calculations predicted? Our safety margins cover such variations. Your safety margins cover variations you can predict, Dr. Choi said. But the universe is full of things you can't predict. That's why we build systems that can handle anything. Admiral Veltar was studying the new control panels. These manual overrides, they allow the crew to control systems even if the computer fails? Every system, Tejo confirmed. Weapons, engines, life support, shields. If all the computers on the ship stopped working, the crew could still operate everything by hand. But manual operation is inefficient and error-prone. It's also reliable, Bora said. When everything else fails, a human with a wrench can still fix things. The Admiral's silver skin was changing colors as he thought. I want to run combat trials, full weapons testing, evasive maneuvers, everything. Sir, Zixthara said, the ship's appearance has been compromised. The other fleet commanders will be shocked by the modifications. Admiral Veltar looked at the human team. They were still dirty from their work, still wearing simple clothes that were stained with grease and metal dust. They looked nothing like the elegant alien engineers who usually worked on coalition ships. Sometimes, he said, being shocked is good for people. It makes them think about things they've never questioned before. The combat trials were scheduled for the next day. Word spread quickly through the fleet that the Eternal Vanguard had been repaired by humans using primitive methods. Other ship captains requested permission to observe the tests. As the human team prepared to leave the bridge, Zixthara approached Tai-Ho. "I have a question," she said. "Your modifications will require constant maintenance. The systems you installed are not self-repairing like ours." "That's right," Tai-Ho said. "So this ship will need regular care, frequent adjustments, constant monitoring." "Yes, but that is inefficient. Our original systems required no maintenance for decades." Tai-Ho smiled. "Your original systems worked perfectly until they didn't work at all. Our systems work well enough all the time, but they need attention. The difference is that when our systems start to fail, we can fix them. When your perfect systems fail," he gestured around the bridge at the damage that was still being repaired from the cascade failure. "We learn that perfection is brittle," he said, "but ugly things that work are strong." The combat trials began at dawn, ship time. The Eternal Vanguard moved through space like a different vessel entirely. Where once it had glided with perfect grace, now it moved with purpose and power. The engines, reinforced with human backup, systems pushed the massive ship faster than it had ever gone before. On the observation deck of the Coalition flagship Harmony, dozens of alien officers watched through telescopes and sensors. They had come to see what the humans had done to their most advanced warship. "Look at it," whispered Captain Zekthar, a veteran Altarian commander. "They have ruined its beauty." The Eternal Vanguard no longer looked like a work of art. Hull, plating had been reinforced with visible support beams. Sensor arrays had been protected by crude metal cages. The smooth, elegant lines were broken by antennas, heat sinks, and emergency equipment that stuck out from the hull like mechanical growths. But it was moving faster than any ship its size had ever moved. "Weapons test beginning," came Admiral Veltar's voice over the communications channel. "All observer ships maintain safe distance." The Eternal Vanguard fired its main plasma cannon. The beam that emerged was brighter and lasted longer than anyone expected. Instead of the usual 3-second burst, the weapon maintained fire for 10 full seconds. "How is that possible?" asked Commander Yinala, a Rigelian weapons specialist. "The power requirements should have overloaded the systems." On the bridge of the Eternal Vanguard, Tai-Ho was monitoring the weapon systems alongside the regular crew. The new human-made control panels showed energy levels that the Altarian crew had never seen before. "Power output at 130% of normal," reported Weapons Officer Kexler. "All systems stable." Master Engineer Kyung-Ho Bae had joined the human team for the trials. He was older than the others, with hands that showed decades of working with machinery. He had spent the last day installing his own modifications throughout the ship. "The weapon systems were only using 60% of available power," he explained to the bridge crew. "The original power distribution system was too cautious. It kept huge reserves just in case, but never actually used them." "Our safety protocols prevent power overload," Zixthara said. "Your safety protocols prevent you from using your own ship's capabilities," Kyung-Ho replied. He pointed to one of his new control panels. "This system monitors actual power usage in real time. If any component starts to overload, it redistributes power automatically. You get maximum performance without the risk." The weapons tests continued. The Eternal Vanguard fired every weapon system simultaneously, something that should have been impossible. The original power grid couldn't have handled the load, but the human modifications not only handled it, they did it easily. "Shield test beginning," Admiral Veltar announced. 3 other Coalition ships began firing practice rounds at the Eternal Vanguard. The defensive shields glowed brighter than anyone had ever seen them. Shot after shot struck the barriers, but they held steady. "Shield strength at 150%, reported the defense officer. "No fluctuation detected." Technician So Young-Han was monitoring the shield generators from her position at one of the human-made control stations. Her modifications to the defensive systems were less visible than the others, but equally important. The original shield generators could produce this much power, she explained to Zixthara. But the control systems wouldn't let them. They were programmed to maintain optimal efficiency instead of maximum protection. Optimal efficiency prevents system damage, Zixithara said. Optimal efficiency gets you killed when someone shoots at you, So Young replied. Better to risk some system damage than lose the whole ship. The shield tests lasted for an hour. The Eternal Vanguard absorbed punishment that should have overwhelmed any ship. But the human-modified systems kept working, kept adapting, kept protecting the crew inside. Engine trials beginning, came the announcement. What happened next amazed everyone watching. The Eternal Vanguard accelerated to speeds no ship its size had ever reached. It changed direction with agility that belonged to smaller vessels. It performed maneuvers that should have torn the hull apart from stress, but the hull held together, reinforced by the ugly human support beams and stress distributors that Dong Wook had welded throughout the ship. This is impossible, said Captain Morden, commander of a heavy cruiser. Ships that large cannot move like that. On the Eternal Vanguard's bridge, the crew was discovering what their ship could really do. The human modifications had revealed capabilities that had always been there, hidden by overly cautious safety systems. Engine output at 200% of previous maximum, reported the navigation officer. Structural integrity holding steady. Systems analyst Mira Song had spent the trials monitoring every component on the ship. Her screen showed thousands of data points: temperature, stress, power flow, vibration, everything that could possibly go wrong. The original systems were designed to last forever, she explained to Admiral Veltar. But forever meant they never pushed their limits, they never discovered what they were really capable of. And now? The Admiral asked. Now they're working at full potential. Yes, they'll need more maintenance, yes, components will wear out faster, but the performance increase is worth it. The trials continued for 6 hours. Every test showed the same results. The human modifications had not just repaired the ship, they had transformed it into something more powerful than its original designers had ever imagined. As the trials ended, the observer ships requested permission to come aboard. Captains and engineers from across the coalition wanted to see the modifications up close. The tours were revealing. Alien officers who had expected to see crude patches and temporary fixes instead found sophisticated systems that worked better than their own technology. These harmonic dampeners, said Chief Engineer Telvok from the cruiser Star Dancer, they are not just preventing resonance failure, they are actually improving crystal efficiency. Dr. Choi nodded. The dampeners absorb, waste energy and feed it back into the system. Instead of being lost as heat, the energy gets recycled. But this should have been obvious to our designers, Telvok said. Your designers were focused on perfection, Dr. Choi replied. They built systems that worked perfectly under perfect conditions. We built systems that work well under any conditions and get better over time. In the engine room, Master Engineer Kyung-ho was showing a group of alien engineers his modifications to the power distribution system. You have tripled the number of control circuits, observed an Altarian technician. This seems wasteful. It's redundant, Kyung-ho agreed. If one circuit fails, the other two keep working. If 2 circuits fail, the third one can handle the full load until repairs are made. But the probability of all 3 circuits failing simultaneously is astronomical. The probability of your single perfect circuit failing was supposed to be 0, Kyung-ho pointed out. But it happened anyway. When my 3 circuits eventually fail, the ship will still be running while we fix them. Throughout the ship, the same conversations were happening. Alien engineers were discovering that human inefficiency was actually a different kind of efficiency. Not the efficiency of perfect operation, but the efficiency of reliable operation under imperfect conditions. By the end of the day, requests were pouring in from across the coalition fleet. Every captain wanted human engineers to modify their ships. Every engineer wanted to learn the human approach to system design. But Zixithara approached Taeho with a different kind of question. Your modifications will change everything, she said. Our entire approach to engineering, our fundamental principles, the way we think about technology, it will all have to be reconsidered. Taeho nodded. That's what happens when you discover your basic assumptions are wrong. But we have built ships this way for thousands of years. Our entire civilization is based on the pursuit of perfection. Maybe it's time to pursue something else, Tejo suggested. Maybe instead of perfection, you should pursue reliability. Instead of elegance, pursue effectiveness. Instead of beauty, pursue strength. Sixathera was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the ship hummed with power, not the silent, perfect operation of Altarian technology, but the busy, purposeful sound of human machinery working hard. It will be difficult, she said finally, changing the thinking of an entire species. All the best changes are difficult, Tejo said, but look what you get in return. He gestured around the bridge where alien and human crew members worked side by side at control panels that combined the best of both technologies. The Eternal Vanguard was no longer just an Altarian ship or a human-modified ship. It was something new, a hybrid that was stronger than either approach alone. You get a ship that works, he said, not perfectly but reliably, not elegantly but effectively, not forever, but for as long as you need it to.